Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that reminds you that if you stomp the subscribe button long enough, you'll eventually get a 1-up. And no, I haven't made a mistake here, this is not the gaming channel, believe it or not. I know, multimedia synergy can get confusing. Meanwhile, over here on Film Theory, we're talking about another Nintendo project, the upcoming
Pokémon Bananza.
You remember several months ago, made by Warner Brothers and creator of Cat in the Hat? Well, if you don't remember that, maybe you do remember the giant chorus of confusion that came as they announced
Mario.
No!
Is Mario.
Yep, that is apparently gonna be a thing, and we only have ourselves to blame. Now listen, what I'm more interested in today is how silent the project has been ever since that. I mean, just there was another Nintendo Direct with
Donkey Kong Bananza.
Well, that was at least until after the Nintendo Direct, when they announced that they were going to be showcasing the That's about from today. But after being starved for Pokémon news for months, I didn't want to wait. So I'm here to provide, maybe not news, but gross speculation mildly supported by evidence, logic, and critical thinking. So pretty much better than what passes as news here. I want to take another look back at the casting of the movie because I suspect the choices Warner Brothers have made tell us a lot about their intentions with this and the type of story they're planning to tell. In fact, I think we can predict almost every major beat of the plot for the entire just based on the casting alone. And spoiler alert, friends, if I'm right, you might just be looking at the video game industry's version of Rick and Morty right here. Get those TikToks at the ready. So before we get into the details, we first need to determine what sort of stories Nintendo's are aiming to tell.
So one of the things about Donkey Kong Country that make it so beautiful is the possible allegory to real life. While most media have some sort of message or theme, sometimes they can get political, or at least teach us a thing or two about history. Me and our friendly neighborhood theorist channel, Game Theory, they actually touched on these allegories before, and how Donkey Kong Country might actually be an allegory for a major event that happened in the US a long time ago. That event being the Banana Wars. While that sounds funny, they make a lot of connections that make sense, so I'm just going to go through a snippet here. See, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a simple conflict that happened in the past. Or should I say crazy, because it was all about bananas. There was this major conflict where the US basically tried to secure bananas, and these banana wars happened sometime after the Spanish-American Wars. This was somewhat led by the Bananas United Fruit Company. Now, the US didn't really just go over there solely for money. It was also an attempt for America to spread its influence throughout the Caribbean islands as well as Haiti, Guatemala, and more. So while the United Fruit Company might have wanted to have major control over bananas, the US used that to strong-arm their way into influencing all of these islands. And you might be wondering, how does this connect back to Donkey Kong Country? Well, Donkey Kong Country takes place on many islands, and many of his other games feature islands as well. If you've played Smash Bros, then you would have seen also the Donkey Kong Island with his face carved in it. So while the islands in Donkey Kong might actually represent the Caribbean, King K. Rool might actually represent Theodore Roosevelt. And the reason why, Game Theory states, is probably because of how he was depicted during his presidency. Now, while a depiction like this might invoke some type of feelings because of recent events, at least at the time of recording in 2025, political cartoons back then depicting him as a king was a way to show how strong his diplomacy was. It actually worked. At the same time, it was a way to criticize him for how he was acting. If you remember something about King K. Rool is that he doesn't really like bananas, but he takes them anyways. Almost like he's using it as an excuse to take over whatever Donkey Kong has, just because he has it. Which is the same reason that the US got involved in the Caribbean Islands in the first place, to take control of their source of wealth and influence that part of the world. Which is why you also see King K. Rool's minions wear army fatigues. Well, what does this have to do with Donkey Kong Bananza, and why would I bring up the Banana Wars? Well, most of the previous Donkey Kong games are always either about environmentalism or some type of other allegory. And in this case, I believe Donkey Kong Bananza took a very dark turn, highlighting one of the worst world conflicts that is currently happening as a recording, which is what is happening in the Congo. So while this video is supposed to be entertaining, make sure you handle this subject with care because in real life, people are going through certain things. So how can we tell that Donkey Kong Bananza is actually an allegory for what's happening in the Congo? Well, the Congo is actually a very wealthy nation. This is because of all the different minerals and sources of material that they have. And because of the amount of materials and minerals that are there, many people mine for major companies in order to get those minerals. But it's never in a good way. In fact, many people are exploited every day because of that. And what makes it worse is that there's minor conflicts that happen all the time over here, with miniature groups fighting for control over different regions for whatever purposes it might be. And behind all the shine and happy exterior of Donkey Kong and his game, this game does not take place in the original place that we talked about. No longer takes place in the Caribbean. In fact, it takes place in a whole nother area. An area where golden bananas are key. They're not even real bananas, which somebody needs to tell DK about. Like, get a grip, man. In this particular Donkey Kong Bananza game, everything revolves around mining. Even all of the game mechanics are built around destroying rocks. And the more you dig, the more things you find. Probably the more minerals you find. This game takes it a step further. Tells us that not only is mining very important to this DK world, but there's actually a Void company that is controlling the whole mining operation. This Void company is split into 3 parts. One part of the company being owned by Poppy Kong, where we can see through her diva nature that she uses this for fashion. She uses all of the mining material to prop up her fashion business. And maybe some of the special ore that she finds is also used for her perfume. And the other part of the company is owned by Grumpy Kong, which is this guy right here who specializes in, get it, weapons. And finally, the one who basically controls it all, Void Kong. And I will go on a limb and say that each one of these characters probably represent each of the company types that are profiting off of the Congo. In the DRC, they have many types of precious metals, be it a large amount of diamonds, gold, and even copper, which could be 100% used for a fashion business as well as being used to create weapons. And how does Void Kong actually profit off of all of this? I believe that Void Kong simply represents all of the different companies sucking away all of the resources that they have. Because this is a little bit more than just banana wars, but it's about how capitalism influences mining operations and what they will use it for. Because while DK sees bananas, the Void company sees a bonanza. Is that a coincidence? I think not.
And that's it. But don't click away to game theory just yet, my friends. We're not done here. See, loyal theorists, there's a last cherry on top of this plot prediction that I think is going to convince you that I'm omniscient if I get right. My wild swing for the fences theory here is that
Bananza
is gonna be a musical. And hey, since I saved you the time, please go back to working on Mario Odyssey 2. It's been too long without a main series Mario title. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And